everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for joining us today and making TeacherCast your home for professional development. This is the Jeff Bradbury Show, episode number 57. I have a treat for you today. Today we're talking to an amazing educator, somebody who's been in film and video for many years and has had an amazing opportunity to enter your classrooms and create great content. So stick around today. We have a fantastic conversation. If this is the first time you're checking out our podcast, make sure you head on over to teachercast.net/podcast. Check out all of our great episodes from our Jeff show to our instructional coaches show. Also, our weekly Digital Learning Today show has been doing some amazing things. Check all that stuff out today over at teachercast.net. And again, thank you guys for making TeacherCast your home for professional development. My guest today is the host and executive producer of a fantastic online show called The World from A to Z. This basically going through current and historic events, talking about current events around the globe. He spent 15 years as an anchor for CNN, working with student news and CNN 10. And one of the things that I'm looking forward to getting into this conversation, he loves Hollywood cinema. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the classic movies. Want to bring on today Mr. Carl Azuz. Carl, how are you today? Welcome to TeacherCast.
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Jeff. And, in our conversation earlier, you told me to refer to you as Dad. So if I say Dad, I just want your audience to know there's not something, strange going on.
No, nothing strange at all. But I mean, you have been all around the world. You've been doing some amazing things. And now you are on a mission to basically inspire students and help them learn about what is going on around the world. And I love the fact that you're doing it at the students' level. You've created something called The World from A to Z. Talk to us a little bit about it.
Love the show because it's kind of what it says it is. I mean, I don't know that it was in our initial plan to be quite as international as it became, but after all, it's called The World from A to Z. And so one thing we decided was a priority, even after we launched, was to incorporate something from some other part of the world in every show, if possible. Now, obviously, there are some shows that are going to be very heavy on domestic news and domestic events and things like that. And so we don't want to miss anything major happening in the United States. But that said, I love the fact that we are covering, I think over the past year, we've been on the air about a year now, and we have visited more than 100 countries. That is to say, we have covered events happening from more than 100 different countries, and the events are just so vastly different from each other at times. I mean, obviously, there was a story about cleaning up the River Seine in advance of the Olympics, but we've had a fashion show in a slum of Nigeria where a designer was trying to show people, listen, first of all, he's trying to generate interest in fashion and to show folks, listen, there are opportunities beyond this place where we live. We've had, a professional mountain biker drop in the mountains of a region of Germany called Sauerland. And so we've covered that. And so I love the fact that we're constantly hitting these different stories. Sometimes it's hard news, like what we see in Ukraine and the Middle East. Sometimes it's just slice of life, geographical culture bonanza, where we're talking about something from a place many people, if not most of our audience, have not been, to give them an idea of what's going on there and what life is like there. So I do love the international aspect of the show. It is roughly 9 to 10 minutes. We broadcast throughout the school week, so Monday through Friday at worldatozz.org. We have a YouTube channel as well. And what we are trying to do is bring current events into the classroom, bring fun and culture and world, perspectives from around the world into the classroom, but also to cover news in a way that is strictly nonpartisan.
Your mission here is to inspire, educate, and empower. I love those three words put together, especially coming at that from this middle school teaching position that I'm working with right now. I've got these students who are looking for content, looking for ways to explain the world. How do you come up with your weekly topics?
Well, first we got to figure out what the news is. And I mean, because we have this middle school and high school audience, we want our show to be as family friendly as the news allows. And sometimes, if there's something brutal going on, we don't want to shy away from it. We might not get into some of the more macabre details that you'll see on network news at night. But that said, I mean, we've got to follow first and foremost what major events are happening in the world. We want to approach it in a way that we don't assume our audience is up to speed on everything. I mean, so often when you look at network news, ABC, NBC, CBS, and this is not a criticism, this is just the approach they use, a lot of times those journalists assume their audiences are up to speed on the basics. Because my audience is an audience of students, I don't assume they're watching the news every day. So as we approach these different events happening, I want to basically give them the background information, the nuts and bolts they need to understand what's happening. Sometimes that involves a little bit of a review if we're talking about the war in the Middle East or something like that. And then to really just hit the high points of why is this important? Why does this matter? What sort of impact is this happening and what's being done about it? Those are really the things we're looking to do when it comes to the hard-hitting international stories. And then for the other stories, as I said, we want them to be very global. We want them to be something you can learn from. And so some of the reports we have lined up for later on this semester, I mean, it's everything from how words have developed in our language to why people have houseplants. Some of it's just things that a lot of folks don't even think about, but there is a history behind, and we love bringing that in because we recognize history is one of the social studies, and we want to make sure we have plenty of that as well.
All your content comes from a nonpartisan and unbiased lens. You just mentioned a ton of different topics. Do you ever solicit topics from teachers and students?
We certainly have in the past through, social media and that sort of thing. Sometimes somebody will suggest something, and there are times when I might, if I'm sitting here and I'm kind of like trying to make a decision between, do you want us to cover more of this or more of that? I might throw something out on Twitter every once in a while just to see what people are thinking or what teachers want to do. I do have a small group of teachers that I contact and I'm in regular contact with. And so sometimes I'll ask them, how is this playing out? What do you want to see more of? Is there something that we have to be especially careful with? Again, not shying away from what's happening, but if there's a sensitive topic, we want to be aware of it. Respect not only who's being affected by the news, but respect who's watching the news. And certainly we're not trying to scare our audience. We want to give them a sense of, even if there's a major world problem, okay, what's being done about it? What's being done to address it? And how can, something like this become resolved in the days ahead? So they have a feeling too of, okay, it's not just there was this horrible event that happened and a whole bunch of people died and on to the next story. We want to make sure that we're trying to give them a sense of, look, what efforts are being made to make this better.
Website is worldatozz.org, and one of the things that I would encourage any teacher to do is not only sign up for the YouTube channel, which I believe, from what I was understanding, more than 3 million views, but your newsletter is also pretty awesome too. Talk to us a little bit about the different ways that you've been able to reach teachers and maybe some of the feedback that they've been able to give you over the last little bit.
Well, one blessing of having been on the air at CNN for 15 years, as you mentioned earlier, is the fact that there are so many teachers across the country and beyond who became familiar with the work I did. And so that was something that I was thankfully able to carry over to the new show. When we launched the new show, I was able to utilize my social channels and TikTok and Twitter and that sort of thing, just to let folks know, I'm back, y'all. We've got this new show. It's going to have plenty of those horrible puns that are part of my punsonality. It would be pun-thinkable for me to have a show without those at the end, where appropriate. But to be able to get the word out and generate interest that way has helped. But so often what we found is so many teachers are connected to other teachers, be it through Facebook, be it through different groups they have online, Instagram, all of that stuff. And then there are many educators. There are a few like you who have podcasts that have tremendous reach. And so it's been a blessing that those folks who've been familiar with me from my previous work have helped us spread the word about the current show. And so certainly we would love for, y'all to continue sharing. It's so good for our show. And just to let folks know that this is here, this is nonpartisan, and this is going to inform you. As you mentioned, we have a YouTube channel as well as worldatozz.org. The YouTube is youtube.com/@theworldatozz. You have to have that little @ in there. So that's another avenue. We look at those comments for each video regularly. Some people request shout outs, but some people also give us feedback on stories, and we've utilized those in the past. And as you mentioned, we have a newsletter folks can sign up for at worldatozz.org. It gives them a preview of what's coming. We're summarizing what the major topics are in each show. And we'll also, at that same area where you sign up for it, there's a place where teachers can request a shout out. So sometimes we'll look in our YouTube comments for that. But a lot of times we'll go through this portal at worlda2z.org where we can see where folks are requesting from and the schools and that sort of thing. And so we want to bring that in to highlight the geographical diversity of the folks watching, because they are everywhere. And that's something that I was excited about. I think we launched last August. Before the end of September, we had heard from a school in all 50 states and highlighted a school in all 50 states. And I think we're going to do that a lot sooner this year. But we're excited to see that we're not just one region. We're not just, the Southeast, the Atlanta, Georgia area where we're based. We're Alaska, Hawaii, the Republic of Georgia. We've heard from folks in Germany and England, Asia. And so that's something that, we're thrilled about. I mean, we've been on the air for a year now, and with the summer off the air, and to have heard from so many people in so many different places is very gratifying.
How have you seen teachers and students use your content? Are they listening and writing reports? Are they building their own videos? What has been the best thing about creating this content now that it's actually in the hands of teachers and students?
One thing I love to hear is a compliment that I've gotten regularly and it always thrills me is because of this show, my students can now converse with their parents at the dinner table about what's happening in the world. That is music to our ears. So I'm thrilled to hear that the teachers are using the show daily. We do have teachers who are creating online guides to go with shows. I've retweeted them from one teacher several times. We've seen teachers, they've talked to us about possibly including something from Kahoot. We offer a weekly news quiz ourselves at worlda2z.org every Friday underneath the show. We have a 10-question quiz about a variety of stories that we covered throughout the week. And so we provide that as well. But we're hearing from teachers, as some are quizzing over it, some are having their students take notes about it. Some have students come up with one or two questions about every single show, one or two things they learned about every single show. So as this show continues to develop and continues to grow, one thing we would like to look into down the road, not in the short term, but down the road, is what else can we provide as another tool to teachers besides the show, besides the trivia and the elements and the social studies and all of those current events themselves. What else can we provide that could potentially be utilized as a tool in the classroom? That's something we'll be looking into in the days ahead.
What do you find teachers are asking for?
I've heard a couple folks talk about putting content on Kahoot or daily guides and that sort of thing. And so I think that would be interesting. Like right now, we're small staff, and I mean, I'm the executive producer and the writer and the host. And so I have a pretty full plate day to day, but I want to deliver that. We had a lot of folks right out of the gate. We were on a website only, and they asked for a YouTube channel. So we did that. We had some folks who were asking for, they were curious about a newsletter, ways to get in touch, updates on when we're off the air and things like that. So as the show has become established and grown, we've been adding things slowly, new elements here and there, a couple new elements to the show itself this year to help accommodate teachers. And I think down the line, as I said, I've heard a couple folks ask for online curriculum style content or content that might be correlated to standards and that sort of thing that we might be able to offer in the days ahead down the road. One thing, though, that I'm excited about is that, so many teachers have thanked us just for being back, just for providing a nonpartisan, trustworthy source of information in a world where, so many people are presenting news through blue or red tinted glasses. That's the last thing we aim to do. I want to be as objective as I possibly can. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but it's my goal to present these hard topics in a way that doesn't lean left or right. I don't mind including perspectives from the left and the right, but I want them to be balanced and weighted evenly. And so that's something that I'm looking for, and something I'm happy to say that teachers haven't only noticed, but they've thanked us for. And so we certainly want to continue providing that, especially as the U.S. election season heats up.
That's certainly a hot topic. I was checking out some of your videos just to kind of see how this is starting to churn up in the news. And I obviously, you're talking directly to high school students and middle school students. You are doing a fantastic job of putting all that stuff together, and you're doing so at a very rapid pace. Talk to us again a little bit about how we can get the product into our classrooms. You said that you're releasing it every week, every day.
Yes, at worlda2z.org, we post a show. Usually it posts Sunday night through Thursday night. So we post it the night in advance of when the show airs. So for that reason, we're not a breaking news show. If you hear about something major that happened overnight on Sunday, it's probably not going to be on our Monday show. We'll cover it Tuesday. But yeah, we produce the show so that it's available in the classroom Monday through Friday throughout the school year at worlda2z.org. And we also release that newsletter. So teachers know, even before they see the show, it's in their inbox and it lets them know, here's what's coming on each day. That also allows us, if we have a very sensitive topic we're covering, or a highly controversial debate, that newsletter allows us to kind of telegraph that punch to teachers to let them know, listen, we're covering this topic today. And we always encourage people to preview a program before they air it. That said, we also want them to trust us to provide nonpartisan news that's appropriate to classrooms. So if we have a very heavy topic, a lot of times that newsletter will let teachers know, hey, heads up, this is coming on today's show. Excuse me. And, make preparations to have that discussion with their students.
What is a day in the life of Carl?
It's a busy
you're creating
one.
these shows, you said
Yes.
Monday to Thursday. The world is changing rapidly. What does planning, writing, recording, what does all that look like on the back end?
Some days a mess, honestly. There are so many things flying at us and so many different elements that we want to get into every show, so many things to remember. But I would say, if you're looking at a program that airs on a Tuesday, I started that on Sunday night. And that's if I didn't know the news in advance. Sometimes there might be a State of the Union speech or a big debate or something like that that we can prepare for in advance. But oftentimes on your average Tuesday, I've started putting together elements on Sunday night. Or what are some things we could talk about? Is there a trivia question on a feature story we'll have? What are some of the great kicker, the goofy elements, the crazy things you see at the end of the show? Can we front load with that? And then obviously as the week develops, as we get into Sunday night, as we get into Monday, I'm monitoring news from around the world from multiple sources and multiple international sources. I'm keeping tabs on what's happening, who's being affected by it, what can happen there, and then planning that in advance. So by the time you see Tuesday's show, you're really kind of seeing 3 days of work. And obviously the bulk of that happening Monday, when we're putting together the hard stories, we're determining our approach to those stories. We're looking at how we can present them in a nonpartisan way or provide multiple perspectives so that we're not favoring one side over another, writing it, determining video elements. Those things happen on Monday. The recording happens on Monday. The show is finalized usually Monday night, sometimes in the wee hours of Tuesday morning, and then folks see it on Tuesday. So, that's a little glimpse of why you might not see something that happened in the world on Tuesday morning on Tuesday's show, is because that show's already done. But that said, we are constantly, being fed information from all around the world in different sources. And we don't want to miss anything. We want to make sure that we are hitting these hard topics because students are hearing about them. People are conversing about them. And if it's not in real time as the news it's breaking, we certainly want it to eventually come on our show so that people can watch it and hopefully have an informed discussion about it.
Me back 15, 20 years or so. How did you get involved with all of this? We before the show, we were talking, you're based in Atlanta. That's kind of how the CNN think. But how did you get into educational television, educational broadcasting?
I was recruited out of the University of Georgia. I was getting ready to, I guess it was a few weeks before graduation. And at that time, there was a news producer recruiting for positions in news. Now, I had studied video and film production. It was my degree is telecommunications arts production, which is a fancy schmancy way of saying video and film production. That's where I got that minor in drama because of the film emphasis on classical Hollywood cinema and Italian cinema and things like that. I loved that. But like so many people I graduated with, I thought, well, I'll just go to Hollywood and make movies. I'll take this degree and make movies with it. And there was, film industry was growing in different places. Certainly it's grown tremendously in Georgia since then. And so I thought either that or maybe joining the Navy. And because news was recruiting at that time, I was not as up to speed on news as I am now. I remember they gave me a news quiz and I got a 50 out of 100, which is a teacher, is a big F. But that said, they liked the fact that I could write, shoot, produce, edit. I had a broad skill set, and I had learned so many different little things about video and film production, going back to the time when I took a technology class in 7th grade and I was the guy walking around with a camera and learning how to record and things like that. I had no idea it would eventually translate to this. But because I had that broad skill set, that helped me land a job in news. I started 2 days after graduation. Ted Turner, who founded CNN, spoke at my college graduation, coincidentally, and I didn't even go to it because I was moving to Atlanta to work for that man 2 days later. So they offered me a job before I even graduated, and I was thrilled to jump in and start learning as much as I could. And that broad skill set helped keep me in the game. So being able to write and produce and, report, go on camera. But a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that I utilize every single day, that has helped me. It has certainly helped me a great deal to transition into the world from A to Z and to help make that show something that could take off as well. And so, I'm certainly grateful for that broad skill set, but that's kind of my career arc. And I'm, grateful for the time that I had with CNN, and I'm grateful for the time I'm doing now, doing something I love, but also being able to reach people with, total freedom. Like, something happens in the world, we can cover it. There are no outside initiatives that, we might be compelled to air. We can air the news. And I'm grateful for that, and grateful to be able to cover it in a way that we can fashion to be strictly nonpartisan, unbiased, so that hopefully teachers and parents will be able to earn their trust and they'll have confidence in showing our program.
That is an interesting and amazing story. And I'm just reflecting on kind of the last 10 or 15 years of where I've been, I've taught broadcasting. I've helped students get into the arts of communications. I've helped students do all these different things. What advice would you have for teachers out there? I do have a lot of broadcasting teachers that I work with and, in Facebook groups and stuff like that. Speak to them for a second. They're the ones that are out there helping students get into those communications fields, those colleges. Clearly now, any student can open up their iPhone and mimic what they see on TV to great ability. What advice would you have for teachers and students looking to make a career out of this?
You might have to repeat that question because I had a few thoughts on it. But first and foremost, you're needed. You have tremendous value as a teacher because you're right, Jeff, in suggesting that everybody has a camera, broadcast quality camera in his or her pocket now. And they can imitate, whether it's on TikTok or if they want to go ahead and flip it horizontally and use cinematic mode and make it look really pretty. But here's the thing. There are so many people, especially in the era of social media, anyone can say anything at any time and anyone can go on camera and say it. And because of that, there is so much, and I'm sorry, I keep bumping my microphone here, but there is so much false or stilted information. There are some people on TikTok who have absolutely no training who are brilliant and very good and good reporters, and they're able to talk about things objectively. But all too often, there are many people, and I'm talking about some folks who have very large influences on very large audiences who are not doing it the right way. First of all, they don't have, the technical background that teachers are helping them learn. But second, teachers are able to help students understand storytelling, help them to understand a logical flow of information, help them to understand how to do something the right way and include multiple perspectives and objectivity so that whether their audience, it shares their interests or doesn't, whether their audience shares their background or doesn't, or whether their audience shares their politics or doesn't, that audience can learn something by watching what they're doing. Teachers can help students be objective and to provide multiple perspectives to help people learn, help people have a conversation about something, as opposed to just hearing one side of it yakety yacked at them and then getting angry and, raising their voices and reposting something on social. And so I think that that's so valuable. I also think that teachers are giving students a head start. It's one thing to have a camera and to mimic a broadcaster. It's another thing to understand the different elements that go into production, that go into video editing. Video editing is an incredibly crucial part of storytelling that can, bring in emotion and bring in the human element and show people what's happening over a voice track, for instance. Teachers can give students these foundations that they can use to be so much better at their craft. And these students who are in TV news production classes at the high school level and in some senses the middle school level are so far ahead of where I was, where, I had a broad background in that in college, I learned a little bit about these different elements of production we discussed. But I didn't have that foundation going back to high school. And so some of these students are leagues ahead of where I was in knowing how a broadcast production is run. And that helps them, whether they go into news, if they go into some facet of TV or Netflix or wherever their career paths might take them. They have so much more of a foundation now. The advice I would have for teachers, besides, at least in the news sense, trying to help your students understand storytelling and objectivity, which is so important. Anybody can give an opinion. Anybody can do an opinion piece. Anybody can hold up a phone and rant. But to be able to teach students to cover something objectively and to give multiple perspectives that could help, foster conversation. One big piece of advice I would tell teachers, and so many of them are already doing it, is help your students have that broad skill set, because that makes you more employable. If all they want to do is be on air, but they don't know how to do any of the elements behind it, it is much harder to get a job, at least a job that pays more than a salaried 24 grand a year, than it is to somebody who might have that ability to run a camera. They might have the ability to do audio. They might have the ability to write some fascinating long-form documentary style pieces. But those skills can help those students get their foot in the door. And those skills can help those students keep a job. In corporate journalism, especially, and this is not a knock on CNN, this is any major corporate news network, you are going to have layoffs. You're going to have changes in the industry. Regardless of where you are, nothing stays the same over 10 years. And so a student who has that foundation, that a teacher has worked with that student on how to affix a microphone and make sure audio levels aren't overmodulated, how to make sure black levels are calibrated on the camera and the ISO and everything is set appropriately, how to write a script and to tell a report, how to go somewhere and tell something with urgency, but how to also creatively tell something entertaining about maybe a giraffe that's making a lot of noise at the zoo and to have fun with it. All of those skills can help a student get and keep a job. And so as somebody who has benefited from that myself, I would encourage teachers to encourage students to have that broad skill set. But they're already doing so many things right at a younger level than was available to me. And so I think that encouragement is not just for the students who are learning, but the teachers who are teaching them.
Episode is called worldatozorg. And Carl, before I let you go, I want to talk about something that I think is extremely important to all of your newsletters. I know we've mentioned it at least once on this program, which is your 5 C's. How did you come up with that?
It was a discussion in advance. I mean, you have compassion, critical thinking, community, Carl. Those are things that, as we were putting the show together, we wanted to, first and foremost, have it be a nonpartisan program that's appropriate for public schools, where they're in the United States or abroad. But we also wanted to make sure that we're presenting these topics in a way that engenders critical thinking. We want students to be able to converse about the news in such a way that, you watch a program, especially some of the more partisan programs in prime time these days, and you have folks screaming and going after each other's throats, or you have folks presenting a topic that it's all lined up on one side. And we wanted to be able to have a product that says, look, we recently covered, for instance, the advent of artificial intelligence, sensors being deployed at waterways in England to measure water levels and temperature and bacteria levels and all that, and then to release on an app information about whether it's safe to swim. A lot of folks like to swim, especially in summertime, whether it's a beach or whether it's a creek or wherever, people would have an extra tool to be able to go swimming. It sounds great. And if you look at just some of the initial reports themselves, it sounds like this is a solution to a problem. Everybody's going to be fixed and everything's going to be great. But there's another element to it, and that is there are many Britons who are expecting to have their water bills raised dramatically over the next few years. And this AI program was put forth by a water company that is planning to raise those rates. And so we want students to have an understanding, too, that so many of the things you see, they don't always come free. So many of the new laws proposed to solve a problem, there are often side effects. So many of the new economic proposals, whether it's a Republican or Democratic administration, they always have side effects. The best human ideas have pros and cons. And so because of this, we want to present those multiple perspectives in a way that students can think critically. Then they can say, you know what, this would be a cool solution, but where's the money coming from? Is this going to affect people's bottom line? Is this going to raise taxes? Is this going to use taxpayer funds? The neat things that we see, even in the news, they don't come free. And we want people to be able to say, okay, is this a government initiative? Is this something privately funded? Who's benefiting? Is this a contract from the government? Is this a real solution, or is it going to cause new problems? And are those problems we can live with or not? Those are all things we want people to be able to discuss after watching the show. And so that's why so often I aim to give multiple perspectives on controversies and encourage that critical thinking. The big picture reason, we live in an incredibly divided world. It is a divided time in America. And you have two sides that are talking at each other, but not to each other. And so if in a small way we can show students there are multiple perspectives on these different controversies, and even if 29 of you line up on one side and one lines up on the other, you can at least see where that kid is coming from. You can at least have more of a civil discussion about what's happening in the news, hopefully a compassionate discussion about what's happening, and then maybe get back to that era of compromise that we saw more of in years past.
Where do you see the future? Where do you want to take this program? You've been doing this for a year, 3 million views on YouTube, hundreds of thousands of students out there that are being affected. Teachers love the program. If you come on the show this time next year, what are we going to be talking about? What do you want your show to look like?
Hopefully, growth. We obviously want to see a lot more folks trusting us, utilizing our program. I'd like to have even more variety than we do in the show. And I don't just mean variety of topics, because I think we got that, but I want to have new segments. I want it to be even more engaging. I want it to be an increasingly valuable tool for educators worldwide to trust and utilize in the classroom. And something that parents can trust and utilize as well. And I would also love to, pie in the sky, I'd love to see students continue to follow us even after they've graduated. I mean, I'm blessed to have been in this game as a news anchor for 16, 17 years. And so I hear from folks and I meet folks who are now in their 20s who are like, dude, I used to watch you in middle school. That's crazy. But if I can have a program that helps students, that helps educators, that continues to grow and helps people think critically and have conversations and to learn, to be another educational component of value in the classroom, we're hitting a home run. So hopefully all of those things and show growth and something that's, continues to, create and continues to become more compelling and more useful and valuable to teachers and students. We're knocking it out of the park if we're doing that in a year.
That is an amazing goal, and I'm looking forward to catching up in a year. And I'm certainly looking forward to bringing in your content to my own middle school classes. It is absolutely amazing. The website is worldatozorg. He is Carl Azuz. Carl, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I'll give you the last word. What would you like everybody to know about you, and maybe some parting words?
I would like parents and teachers and administrators to know that there is a nonpartisan current event source that aims to be as family friendly as the news allows and that is completely free at our website and our YouTube channel. We invite them and welcome them regardless of what part of the country they're in, regardless of the politics of the parents that many have to answer to. We want to be a program they can utilize daily and they can trust, hopefully without folks barking negative feedback at them afterward. We welcome one, we welcome all. And then as far as I'm concerned, look, the punny punchlines at the end of the show, I'm writing myself still. It's something that I enjoy. They're part of my personality, as I say. And so I certainly want people to understand the news isn't all politics. It's not all serious gloom and doom, controversy, war, international upheaval. There are also some pretty fun and crazy things happening in the world, and there is a great breadth to news that maybe some of the other networks you've seen aren't covering to the extent we are, and we hope there's something that you can find value in as well.
Teachers, I highly recommend checking it out, worldatozorg. There's a lot of great things happening over there. And of course, make sure that you check out all the great stuff happening over here over on TeacherCast.net. You can find all of our shows at TeacherCast.net/podcast. Subscribe over on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you guys get your podcasts. So on behalf of Carl and everybody here on TeacherCast, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you guys to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.